All right, let's begin. This briefing will break down the nationalist operational plan for the final offensive of the Vizcaya campaign, covering that crucial period from March 31st to July 8, 1937.
Now, before we get into the details, it's important to establish our foundation. The analysis we're about to review comes from the meticulous research of Colonel F.J. Victor Rodrigo, as published on the Batallas Guerra Civil website. This ensures what you're seeing is both technically and doctrinally sound.
So here's how we're going to approach this. We'll start with an assessment of the ground forces and their structure. Then, we'll cover the absolutely critical role of air power. From there, we'll conduct a force assessment, looking at the key strengths and weaknesses before we tie it all together with a synthesis of the operational plan.
Okay, let's start with the boots on the ground. The key maneuver element for this entire offensive is the first group, which is under the command of General Solchaga.
If you take a look at the operational map, you can see the deployment of the first group laid out along the front. Up on the coast, to the north, we have Cayula's 2nd Brigade. As we move south, you see the I Brigade under Garcia Valino, followed by Latour's 3rd Brigade. And then, anchoring the whole southern flank, you have the 4th Brigade, commanded by Colonel Alonso Vega.
Now, what's really telling on this slide is the significant disparity in strength. You've got the 2nd and 3rd Brigades at roughly 4,500 men each. The IST is a bit larger, but look at the 4th Brigade under Alonso Vega. It's a much more powerful formation with almost 10,000 men. That right there tells you where the main effort is likely going to be.
So, as of March 30th, the total force committed to this offensive, and that includes all combat and support personnel, stands at 27,914. This is a significant concentration of manpower for a single operation.
And backing up those troops is a very powerful artillery component. Under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Martinez de Campos, there are approximately 200 guns ready to go. That is a formidable concentration of firepower, and it's specifically designed to shatter the enemy's initial defensive lines. So, who exactly were the men that made up these brigades? Let's break down the unit structure to really understand the composition of these fighting forces.
You see, the composition of these brigades wasn't static. It was actually tailored for specific operational requirements. The core was this blend of highly motivated volunteer units, the tercios de requetes, and battalions from the regular infantry regiments. You also have a very unique element here, the Flechas Negras Mixed Brigade, a powerful, self-contained unit led by Italians but composed of Spanish troops.
This slide gives you a sense of the character of these units. We see renowned Riquetes tercios, battalions from historic regular regiments, and a Phalange walk unit. But what's really notable is the presence of only one Moroccan unit, the IV Tabor of Tetuan. This is important because it directly counters some claims that a large portion of Solchaga's force was composed of Moroccan troops.
Okay, let's now turn our attention to the skies. The nationalist aviation was an absolutely critical component of this offensive, with the Northern Air Forces being commanded from their headquarters in Burgos.
And as you can see right here, their air assets were not all clumped together in one place. They were strategically dispersed across a network of airfields. This gave them the operational flexibility and the depth they needed to sustain air operations across the entire front.
This air power was really made up of 3 distinct components. You had the Spanish National Aviation under General Kindelin, the Italian Legionary Aviation, and of course the very well-known German Condor Legion, commanded by General Sperli. This international mix brought a powerful combination of equipment, tactics, and doctrine to the fight.
So in total, these combined forces could field approximately 140 aircraft. This included a mix of bombers, reconnaissance planes, and fighters, which was more than enough to secure overwhelming air superiority for the duration of the offensive.
Now that we've seen all the components, let's assess the force as a whole. What were the key strengths and what were the weaknesses of the army that General Mola had assembled for this campaign?
And this image brilliantly illustrates the central dilemma they faced. After a winter of rest and reorganization, Solchaga's forces were in excellent condition. They were well commanded and morale was high. But their operational capacity was defined by a pretty significant imbalance. So the crucial point boils down to this contrast. On one hand, you have superior artillery and complete dominance in the air. On the other, you simply don't have enough infantry. This scarcity of battalions meant that the same elite units had to be constantly shuffled along the front to spearhead attacks, and that led to significant wear and tear. It was clear, right from the outset, that achieving a truly decisive outcome was going to require substantial reinforcements.
So, given this imbalance of forces, how exactly do they plan to win? Our final section synthesizes the operational plan that was designed to overcome these challenges and achieve victory.
The entire operation really hinges on their ability to overcome two strong, deep, and well-prepared fortified lines. So the plan is built around two major rupture actions. The thinking was that the success of these breakthroughs would dislocate the enemy's entire defensive system, creating the opportunities needed for exploitation.
And the plan is broken down into 4 distinct phases. First, the rupture of that outer fortified line. Second, an intermediate phase to seize the necessary ground to establish a forward operating base for the next assault. Third is the main effort, the rupture of the inner line, the so-called Iron Belt of Bilbao. And finally, Phase 4, a rapid exploitation to occupy Bilbao and advance all the way to the provincial border with Santander, which would achieve the ultimate strategic objectives of the campaign.
And that concludes our overview of the operational plan. This was a complex and absolutely decisive campaign, and for a much deeper dive into the tactical details, I highly recommend you explore the source material at www.batalhasguerracivil.es.